Welcome in to episode 271 of the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network. Sources Say is, as always, brought to you by our good friends at Justice Dental. Visit one of their two Lexington locations that's on Blazer Parkway and Wellington Way by scheduling an appointment online at justicedental.com or by calling 859-543-0700. You can even send a text message to one of their friendly team members at the same number to ask a question or make an appointment. Now is a great time to schedule your dental cleaning. Dr. Thompson, Dr. Justice, and their team strive to provide you with good oral health and a comfortable environment. The Justice Dental team looks forward to seeing you soon. I'm your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio, back from the road. 2 weeks of just endless nonsense down in North Augusta at Peach Jam, then north of the border in Toronto, finally back home, settled in a couple days after the fact. So the dust has now settled on Kentucky's 4-game winning streak stretch up in Toronto at the Globl Jam. We had times where we were thinking that there was a chance that they could go up there and lose a couple games. I don't think the competition justified some of those concerns after seeing the games, but still a ton to learn about this program, where things are currently. A lot to be excited about. Shawn, thank you for joining us. First and foremost, how the heck are you?
I'm connected to the internet now, and it's good to be here. And no, we got a lot of positives out of that trip to Toronto, and I think that's probably the main takeaway is it was a shot in the arm for the fan base, and I think a shot in the arm for anyone who went through the spring and summer with this program, and reasons to be optimistic. And has it really been 2 weeks since we were in North Augusta? It
feels like I went away to war, man. I've been gone and I haven't seen my family. My birthday was up there. Didn't even feel like I celebrated a birthday. I'm literally going with my mom tonight to celebrate birthday dinner because I've been gone the whole damn time. So it's like time has just been irrelevant and non-existent to me in my little sphere. So I'm finally rejuvenated. I've needed this week desperately to get back on my feet and just like figure out which way is up and sort everything out. But it's been good to like let it marinate a little bit. And you know, you don't want to overreact in the moment after watching games, and you know, especially exhibition games like this. You never want to overreact, but I feel just as good today about how the Cats played in Toronto as I did as the games were going on, which is a really, really cool thing. Like there's a ton to be excited about these Cats, and I guess just the trajectory of the program, where things stand right now, and just what they can be down the road.
Yeah, then you know, this is our first time talking since that trip ended, and so many positive things to take away from each individual player, to the team overall, to the way I thought Cal spoke to the media and some of the things that he said, and we'll get into some of the other things and some of the maybe the concerns and injuries to Ugo and Bradshaw, but just overall what this roster did up there and sharing the basketball to me, Jack, and I said it last week when we were recording on the show that some people will say that the competition wasn't in the elite category and it's not going to be what Kentucky's going to face in the SEC and some of the better programs in college basketball. And that's true, but just the overall look that the way that this team played and they played together. And I thought for the most part, every single player had their moment where they contributed and added something for fans to be excited about, all the way down the roster. Of anybody that contributed and played significant minutes, I thought they at least had one moment that could give you something to be like, okay, you know, that guy's going to be okay, or this guy's maybe better than what we expected. I don't think anyone just significantly, you know, underperformed. I thought that everybody had a moment, and I think that that's such a positive takeaway, especially when you get basketball in July. Like this group is going to be okay.
Yeah, I think big picture takeaway, just ignore the competition. And again, I still think that they were mid-major plus level talents for all three of the opposing teams. Like it's not like we were playing a bunch of YMCA doofuses. Like there was actual tangible competition tenfold better than what we saw down in the Bahamas. So like just make that clear. It was still very solid overall competition. Not elite, not even very good, but still enough to get real takeaways about what this team is and what their identity is. And I think big picture, what I was personally most excited for, 91.8 points per game while shooting 47% from the field, but big picture, 103 total assists on 142 made field goals. That's a 72% assist rate. I don't care if they're doing that 5-on-0, Shawn. Like, it's the selflessness of this team. It's the identity of I would rather make the hockey assist. We saw so often this past year ball dominance and assist hunters, guys that would rather dribble the air out of the ball just so they could get the assist notch next to their name instead of making the extra pass that would lead to the next pass, whether it be a lob at the rim or an extra kick out for the three. Like, that is an identity of unselfish basketball that last year's team was clearly missing, a clear flaw of last year's group. And I think part of the lack of cohesion that we saw of last year's group is because they understood that the ball stuck so often that they kind of got lackadaisical on the perimeter. They knew that once the ball went inside to Oscar, game over. They weren't seeing it again. It was black hole. It's gone. Even if the ball was in Savier's hands, they knew that he was going to look to make his assist, not to kick out that would lead to the extra bucket. We don't have that issue with this team. This is a group that wants to make that extra pass, get the extra hockey assist, and keep that thing moving. And Cal, I think, had a couple very specific, I don't want to say jabs, but very specific comments about we don't need 12 dribbles before the offense gets rolling. And he also mentioned this isn't a wrestling match. This isn't a marathon. This isn't about athletes and being a bruiser and things like this. Was about having basketball players playing together. We got to see that on full display, and that's big picture. No matter who the competition was, that matters more than anything else that we saw in Toronto.
It absolutely does. And that was the big takeaway for me, was just how Kentucky played the game. And you and I got into for weeks about some things that Kentucky was going to do offensively, and they did those things on that trip. The things that you and I discussed leading up to that trip in early July, all those things that we talked about, they were on display, and they looked better than I thought they were going to look. And it was an exciting brand of basketball. And I know some people will say 24-second shot clock played into that. And I mean, it does. Like, it speeds the game up. And I would love to see that become a part of college basketball, just because I thought the way the games were officiated, I thought were improved play too. That's something we probably know we will not see here in a few months.
But just overall, love the 4 quarters too.
Yes, the 4 quarters, that changes it up too. And I keep wondering why they're not going to move that. I don't know if that has anything to do with the number of TV timeouts or what it is, but at some point I'd love to see men's college basketball catch up with where everybody else is and go to quarters too. But back to what you were saying about the sharing the basketball, that right there, it didn't matter that they had 10 practices together or whatever the number was. I wasn't getting caught up in how many guys missed shots or how many guys made shots. I was looking at what was the quality of play. And sharing the basketball like that with just a short couple of weeks together is so impressive. And being down 2 bigs and having to get creative with your lineups, I thought the overall energy too, the body language that guys played with. When you saw Antonio Reeves shooting the ball, there were dudes reacting while it was still in flight to the rim. Like, those guys were having fun in Toronto. I thought John Calipari looks rejuvenated. I think he looks refreshed. It's like he's hit a restart button and he's found something that has made him joyful about this group. And I hope that sticks too. Like, there was just joy all the way around.
And let me add, John Calipari was not required to speak like even half of as much as that he did up in Toronto. Like, the media team kind of told Cal, hey, we'd love for you to, obviously you need your kind of state of the program address to start with. Hey, we're excited to be here. What does this event mean to you? Things like that in game 1. And even game 2, they were like, hey, you should probably give, an in-depth breakdown of how the game went, how things are going, where you think the game, this team is trending, injuries, yada, yada, those sorts of things. And then from there on, he was off the hook. Like, he was not required games 3 and 4 to speak to the media. In fact, they were kind of anticipating after game 4 that he was going to, send out Orlando, send out Chin, send out, we haven't even talked to Chuck Martin yet in a public official capacity yet. That would have been a good opportunity for him. Cal went out of his way to not just talk, but give really thoughtful and exciting and talk in depth about where things stand and what he thinks about this team. And I think that's indicative of his mindset going into, the bulk of the offseason, preseason. Like, he is confident about this group. He likes this group. he said several times in those interviews, I'm having fun. Are you guys having fun? Like, oh, we are really enjoying this. And I just did not get that level of excitement last season, sometimes the year before at times. But I think that this is the style of play he's wanting to play. I think this is the group of talent, young, the young clay that he wants to be able to mold that I just don't think he has seen in recent rosters that I think he's really, really genuinely excited about.
There's so much excitement with him, and this is the type of roster that fits him, right? A lot of young kids, a couple of veterans that are really, to me, the difference in why we saw such good quality play in Toronto. Antonio Reeves making shots and Trey Mitchell kind of being a unicorn at that 5 spot that just does a lot of good stuff, and that's just such a huge addition to this program is Trey and the things that he adds offensively and get in there and fighting for rebounds and sticking his nose in there defensively, undersized at that position that he had to play on that trip. But the pieces just fit together so well. And that's where I was coming from, that you can dive into analytics and you can dive into each individual player's performance over the course of the week. And they all had moments where we know that they need to improve on. But overall, back to what I was saying in the beginning, every guy had their moment that stood out in a positive way too. Like it was somebody different every single game. Reed Sheppard had his run where he looked like the best player on the team, and then DJ Wagner becomes the closer. And then before the trip ended, what I thought was the biggest takeaway was Justin Edwards having his moment that he had not had in the previous 3 games. Him doing that, hitting shots, being aggressive, that was to me the final cherry on top for the entire trip, is you got to see all those guys kind of do their thing. Rob Dillingham had his moments early in the trip where he had a lot of assists and wasn't turning the ball over, wasn't forcing things. We do know that he needs to get stronger. All these guys have things that they need to get better at. But overall, as a team, they just complement each other so well. And that's where I think that this team was probably the most surprising to me, is how far along they were together.
And I love that Cal went out of his way to close out the event to say nothing's changing about what we're doing and what our identity is going to be once the 7-footers come back. Terrible news. We'll talk. I need to get your thoughts on this now. Ugan Onyenso goes down with what was perceived as an ankle roll at the time of the initial exhibition game, the exhibition for the exhibitions before the Globl Jam's games ramped up. He turned his ankle against Team Africa. It was that Tuesday. He is on crutches, is in a boot. The initial kind of diagnosis, there was a lot of optimism that it didn't look that bad. He's probably going to be okay. And then I think that pain kind of continued to linger the next couple of days. They had him as, wrapped up and taped up and all the cautions you could possibly get. And it still wasn't, I don't think, developing the way they were hoping. And they were like, ugh. So I was told before the trip ended, they decided to go send him home, get some further testing done, and unfortunately did reveal, again, another freaking break, or a fracture that absolutely sucks, man, because this was such a crucial opportunity for Ugo to just figure out what he was, get some real one-on-one lick. Again, his backup for the majority of these summer practices was Jordan Burks, 6'9", barely 200 pounds, a true forward as your backup 5. You can't bang against somebody like that. You can't know who you are from a physicality standpoint against somebody like that. So there was a lot of excitement internally about what he could do in these 4 games against legitimate, talent aside, just actual physicality and see how far he's come along this offseason. You don't get that. He goes down with his injury. Now it's kind of Trey Mitchell as the starter with Jordan Burks as his backup. So you kind of have you don't have any physicality on this team whatsoever. Aaron Bradshaw's still on pace to come back in time for the regular season. John Calipari kind of put out a couple of months. Kyle Tucker said it was a 2-month timeline for Ugo to return. So you're missing really valuable practice time with your 2 7-footers on the team who will be needed this upcoming season. It's a good thing to see how well the team played without both of them, but it's still that's my biggest question mark leaving this event. Just what do you have in the front court, and do you kind of have to stick with your guns and what was working up in Toronto playing small ball?
Yeah, and two, it kind of put Jordan Burks at a disadvantage too, putting him on the floor at spots where we're not going to see him if Kentucky's at full strength. But hey, he got on the floor and he contributed, made some plays too. But it's a big blow to Ugo. It's a big blow to the team too, because that was the guy that you and I'd circled that needed this trip the most of all the guys on this roster, because he's the one that's different than all the other pieces they got. He's the guy that is billed as a rim protector, and we want to see how much he had improved offensively and the decision making and those areas of his game that now we don't get to see. And being out a couple of months, it delays his development going into the season. And your fear is you have two big men here that have injuries to a foot. It's not a guard. It's different when it's big men with lower body injuries, and especially when it comes to your feet. That is the concern that I think that now you look at this thing. If you're John Calipari, I think it's a big risk if you don't add somebody. And it's not like that. I mean, you're kind of playing a waiting game to see what happens with grad transfers in the portal in August. You have no idea who's going to go in there and what's going to happen. Look at the situation of how Kentucky landed Trey Mitchell a month ago. Like that's not an everyday thing that just kind of happens. But somebody will become available. It's just, does Kentucky pursue it? And if they do add a grad transfer or someone from the portal, it has to be a piece that fits and can contribute right away on this roster. If they don't, then I think that you have to look at Somto possibly as a reclass just to add another frame to this team, because you got to have some physicality on it. From all the good that we saw offensively and the things that they did, you got to have somebody that can't get pushed around, that can help you on the glass. I don't know if Somto is going to be able to be a guy that could just play a ton of minutes right away as a freshman. We know that he still needs development, but the hope is you get both of those bigs back. But if one of them is delayed in the return, you've got to have some security behind them to at least have some depth there. You got away with it with Trey at the 5. I don't know if you can get away with it for an entire season, though.
And just from a physicality standpoint, you cannot have zero presence down low. Like you got to have somebody. In Somto, again, that's what we've talked about, is just the perfect guy where the expectations just really are not that high for him. And you don't need a superstar at that position. Like you don't. You like where things stand right now. And I mean, shoot, the teams would probably be okay, with where things are, assuming no injuries. But the issue is you can't assume stuff like that. You can't be caught with this collection of talent, with this much versatility, a group that Cal is clearly in love with. You can't be caught empty-handed and assume everything's going to be okay if Aaron Bradshaw's situation gets pushed back, if Ugo's situation gets delayed any. Like the margin for error is so thin right now that it just be such a luxury to have a guy like Somto in, or you know. I asked just flat out, what would it take for Kentucky to add somebody in August, the grad transfer route? Why not push for a Somto reclass and further explore the grad transfer route? And the response I got back was, we're staying put unless something crazy happens. Would Ugo going down with a broken foot not classify as something crazy? I mean,
it's crazy.
If you ask me, I think that's pretty darn crazy. I agree, man. I just don't know how you can comfortably pass on an insurance policy in the front court if it presents itself. Like you don't need a superstar. Just find a physical presence, whether it's Somto or somebody in the grad transfer route. Make it happen, because you do not want to be caught empty-handed this season.
No, and it doesn't even have to be a guy that you play through at any point. It doesn't have to be a guy that gets you points. Maybe just some dunks here and there. Some size to just kind of disrupt things on the interior in the SEC. We know that if this is what Kentucky's roster were to look like going into the season, every focal point on every scouting report would be attack Kentucky at the rim and go right at Kentucky on the block.
We saw that against Canada in the gold medal.
Yeah, and that would be – but then you'd have coaches at the highest level of college basketball game planning an entire season against Kentucky to attack it. That's a dangerous game to play. And then you go back to you and I in the spring and what we talked about when we were going through the Hunter Dickinson stuff and Ugo in the portal. We kept talking about, wow, Kentucky has no depth whatsoever on the interior. And then the Bradshaw injury becomes what it is. And then you get Ugo going down. Like you just can't run the risk of that happening. And there's no positives that come from injuries, but I'm glad it happened now and not in October, November, where the staff thought, we'll be okay. Because then if one of those guys goes down, now you're down to one. And sure, you can get away with it with Trey as a backup 5, or maybe even primarily being the 5, especially in some offensive lineups. But who's to say you don't get into January, February, and you get another turned ankle by your other big man? Because we know this happens. There's going to be guys on this roster that are going to get tweaks, and they're going to do things, and they're going to miss a game or two. Like, that happens. That's the grind of college basketball. But you're already kind of thin at one spot. You've got to add some depth there, and we'll see. Like, it's almost August. It's going to kind of get crazy. I'm sure you'll have some guys become available. It'll be, do any of those guys make sense to Kentucky? And if they don't, then I think you at least got to look at a reclass. If not, you have a team that has a chance, I think, to make a deep run this tournament. I don't want to see it kind of just come and go and kind of fall through just because of not having enough pieces and enough bodies at the 5 spot, or just on the interior.
And that's what sucks about losing a guy like Lance Ware, because I wouldn't have any concerns whatsoever if Lance were still on the roster and he was your enforcer. Like, it just really sucks. Like, that's where it sucks to lose a guy like Lance, where again, you're not. I honestly prefer Cal to not take best player available just for the sake. Like, if a Hunter Dickinson level talent, where yes, the talent's clearly there, but you kind of have to get wonky with fit and style of play and things like that. I'd almost prefer Cal favor fit. Just find the right plug and play guy. Like, I mean, shoot, look what they did with Trey Mitchell. Trey Mitchell was not the most talented big available. I mean, shoot, they could have gone all in on, the rest of the West Virginia roster. There were other pieces there that probably would have been a higher level of talent, but for what Kentucky was looking for at that given time, Trey Mitchell was the absolute perfect fit. And that was as clear as day when we saw him play in Toronto. 14.5 points, 57% shooting, 44% from 3, 100% from the free throw line, 7.7 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1 steal, 1.5 blocks, 32 minutes a game. Like, he was the perfect, absolute perfect player for what Kentucky was looking for. I'd almost prefer Cal to go that route if necessary. If he looks at his team in the mirror and says, we need one insurance policy, I would hope that Sompto would be that guy. You figure things out academically. I was told he's short one class right now that is not available in the summer. So it's one of those, do you find a loophole? Do you find some random online class that allows him to, I have no idea. I don't know how the credit transfers work and all that. I don't know. But he is one class short of being eligible for college basketball right now. So it's just damn, man, that'd be a perfect ideal scenario to just get things figured out academically with Sompto, get him, high floor, low ceiling guy, make it work with him, and there's your physical presence. That'd be ideal. But I don't know. It'll be really fascinating to see what Cal does in the coming weeks.
And Sompto's a guy too that I get it. They feel like he needs another year at OTE, and a lot of people feel that. But if you're coming to Kentucky and you're already committed, he's going to develop more in this program, practicing in this program, than he will anywhere else. And if he's committed to being at Kentucky for more than one season, then I think that it almost makes sense to go ahead and join the roster in August and get here if he can, or at some point to get that practice time. And we know that that's crucial. But we'll see where Kentucky goes. It's this transfer portal stuff and the grad transfer loopholes and everything. It's made it a 12-month, 365 days a year process for coaches now. And you're constantly having to recruit and look at how you can impact your roster. And Kentucky's in a situation where they're going to have to. And you're smiling, so I have no idea.
Three straight comments in the comment section. Connor Rigg, you should talk to Dwayne Washington. Cameron Maxwell, can we get Shaden's mentor to help with the Somptos transcript? FT. Now, how could someone possibly find a loophole in the high school academic system to get a degree right before a deadline? I simply don't think that can be done. Dwayne Washington to have that transcript written in crayon at the perfect time for you, if necessary. So, Sompto needs to hit up our guy Dwayne Washington. That guy would be eligible tomorrow if Dwayne Washington was his representation. But
I didn't know what you were about to say, but as I was trying to make my point, I would look at you laughing. I was like, I just need to end what I'm saying and let him speak here because I knew it was something good.
It's just three straight, bang, bang. Dwayne Washington jab, Dwayne Washington, Shaden Sharp jab. You like this, by the way? I fell down the stairs the first day I got back. You like that?
Yeah.
That's where my mind was when I got back from Toronto, falling down the stairs. Not just absolute.
Did you have your hands full?
Cluster. Did I have my hand? No, it was like a cartoon. So I have a cup in my hand. It was full of water and ice, like filled to the top. And I'm halfway down the stairs. And in my mind, I even think, hey, this carpet's kind of slippery. It'd be really terrible for me to fall down the stairs. I thought at the very top step, and I was like, man, can't be, that'd be a terrible thing. And I get halfway down. I think I'm in the clear. My heel slides across the top. And as my heel slips forward, the cup goes straight in the air like I'm on freaking Looney Tunes, and the whole cup drenches on my head. Cup hits me in the head, and I down the stairs like a big freaking idiot. So it's been a disaster and a half this week, man.
Should I look at grad transfers in the portal too in August just in case you have an injury?
Yeah, so sources say gets a new guy out of the bullpen. While we're off track and being absolutely ridiculous, this week, while I guess a little bit last week too, because we had just gotten our nice little package in the mail or whatever. Let me tell you, our friends at Birddogs, I look. There's sometimes you get a partnership, you get an ad that you're not super familiar with the product. You're trying to hype it up a little bit to sell, but like would you truly be using that product just going to buy it in a general? Like, would you go buy that at Kroger or at Walmart or whatever, like Dick's Sports, whatever? Like, would you go out of your way to buy that product? Sometimes, yeah, but not all the time. Birddogs, bro, unbelievable. I'll do my ad read, but more so just my personal experience has just been fantastic. Birddogs makes you look good. Completely agree there. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddogs shorts do exactly the same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fix this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches, so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. They also use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Look, in fact, no, it wasn't the tumbler that I fell down the stairs with, but it was a different tumbler. But thank goodness, because I would not want it. It's an amazing tumbler. I've been using the heck out of that, but the shorts and the pants have been absolutely unbelievable. Shawn, I know you've been wearing the heck out of them as well.
Yeah, I have actually. We had an event here get canceled on the 4th of July and got not canceled, but postponed to this past weekend. And I wore them there, and they were super comfortable. And I got the shorts and I got the joggers too. And I like the joggers. I'm a joggers guy. Ooh, you got them on. That's the same pair I have. They feel amazing. Yeah. Like I can't wait till practice starts and I can just wear Birddogs joggers all the time to basketball practice. Like, no, look, I'm serious though. The shorts are super comfortable. Actually, I have mine on. I don't know if you can see them on camera here, but I don't know if you can even get my camera there, but
we don't need to be seeing all that leg. I already got out of my comfort zone by showing all that leg. So I don't think we need to be turning off our viewers.
I'll show my tumbler though. There we go.
Speaking of that tumbler, go to birddogs.com, promo code KSR or birddogs.com/KSR for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/KSR or promo code KSR for a free Yeti style tumbler. You do not want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. I've been sleeping in them. Like I am obsessed with them so much. I appreciate our partnership with them. They're the best. And big fan of our guys at Birddogs. Make sure you purchase and get your free tumbler to go with it. I absolutely love it. Well, while we're running through some of the things that went on in Toronto and some big picture takeaways, how about a do Theoro? We're talking about bigs and guys who, kind of change what this team can do and what the identity of this team is. Having a guy like Adou Thiero as your starting four for the majority of the week, him splitting time with Justin Edwards at the four was pretty darn terrific, if you ask me. I love what he was doing in particular, attacking the basket. He's going to be a free throw line, just absolute demon this season. I'm very excited for the upside and continued growth of Adou Thiero.
Yeah, I thought that kind of the things that he did and the way that he added contributions to the team. And a lot of people were just talking about how much better he was. And that's the thing. Like we had no idea what to expect out of DJ Wagner and the freshmen. Like we've seen their high school tape and we watched them in all-star games and EYBL events and all those. But we saw Adou Thiero on the floor a year ago for Kentucky, and he looked significantly improved 4 or 5 months removed from the NCAA tournament. And I think he's able to slide and play a position that fits him more. He's not the primary ball handler, but he still gets to kind of showcase some of that strength and the ability to get the ball by a defender's hip. He had some dunks and flashed off some athleticism and some power. He's going to be a guy that's going to play. And I don't know what his role is going to be exactly. Like, and that's where not seeing Kentucky at full strength, it kind of forced some guys to do some different things, maybe play some extended minutes at spots that they won't play here in a few months. But he's a guy to me, Jack, that I think is going to kind of fluctuate all across the minutes played. Like there's going to be a game where I think you're going to use him maybe 26, 27, 28 minutes if you have to. Then there's going to be some games where maybe he plays 17, 18 minutes. He's kind of just a versatile piece that can do a lot of things for you. He can rebound his position. He can get to the free throw line. Can he knock down shots consistently from the perimeter? He has experience in this program. That's something that you cannot take away and you cannot undervalue. Like that is a big thing. You get Kentucky experience. He's got to take that into the sophomore year and build on it. But hey, he had a good trip. I thought he did a lot of good stuff, and you can certainly see some growth in his game, and not just growth in his game, but growth in his frame too. Like he looks stronger.
Oh, Chap Franklin coming after you, Shawn. The fact that these guys are egregiously late time after time is frustrating. Well, if you kind of think about it, if we had set it for 5 o'clock, because we just kind of made up what the time was going to be. If we had set it at 5 o'clock, we would have been 48 minutes early. So, it depends on which side of the aisle. But it's kind of like a running joke at this point. There's always something popping up as we're going live that is out of both of our controls, and it's part of our thing, and you just got to roll with the punch, control the controllables, as several brilliant minds once or continue to say. We got to do what you got to do.
We've been later. Might I add, we've had some days where we were in the 30 to 35 minute range of being late, but we've cleaned those up. But today was my fault, and I apologize. I was trying to get internet to connect. It was not happening. And then one quick reboot, and it finally worked. And trust me, you're frustrated. I could tell Jack was frustrated when I got on here and saw his face. He was ready to get started at 4 o'clock. I wasn't. So my fault. And but hey, we're giving you good content. We're here. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, gives us time to join the channel in time for the Justice Dental ad read. Yeah, absolutely. Like you wouldn't be able to experience the greatness that is Justice Dental. And while we're at it, I mean, we got to talk about our guy, Andy Ludicky. Sources Say is also brought to you by our friend, Andy Ludicky and MyPerfectFranchise.net. Are you ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy? Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. His services are 100% free, and he is here to help you. If you have any questions about business ownership, you can learn more and contact Andy anytime at www.myperfectfranchise.net. Shawn, we talked a little bit to open the show about Reed Sheppard, and just I guess we had heard such great things about what he had done in summer practices and how he had been ahead of schedule. But were you expecting him to control the game the way he did and understand pace and body control and playing within the flow of the offense so well at this stage? Because I know he had played point guard at North Laurel, but I was just interested to see what role he was going to fit at this program. I thought he was going to be more of the CJ Frederick kind of catch and shoot at least from day one, and he'd have to kind of grow into the primary ball handler role. But I really thought he stepped right in and was really comfortable as that lead guard. Cal said he could play 1 through 3. He was the one guy that I think really raised his own personal stock about what his immediate expectations are here at Kentucky, but also what he can be down the road. Like, I had heard leading up to this trip that the staff is not expecting him to be around 4 years. If you think Reed Sheppard is going to be a 4-year player at Kentucky, you're wrong. Like, that is not going to happen here. He is going to be probably a multi-year guy, but I'm if you're expecting 3 and hopeful for 4, I'd rather expect 3 expect 2 and hope for 3. That's my anticipation about where Reed Sheppard is right now, and what he can be from day one, and what he's going to be in the future for this Kentucky program.
Yeah, I would say I was surprised a little, but his pace of play, I wasn't surprised with that, because I feel like that's the strength of his game, is he plays at his pace, and he always plays at his pace. He dictates the pace with the ball in his hands. You can't speed him up. And I think that's why you're going to see him be able to take care of the basketball at this level and not turn it over. Like, he doesn't panic in any situation. And you saw him the times that he did make mistakes. He made a poor inbounds pass there in front of Kentucky's bench where there wasn't a ton of movement. There wasn't a lot of guys going to the ball, but he was quick to let everybody know, like, hey, that's my fault. Or if he made a mistake, he was tapping his chest like, hey, that's on me. And a guy that, to me, you're going to see him on the floor late in games for Kentucky, regardless of whether he starts or if he's 6th man or 7th man. That feels like a guy that's going to be a part of Kentucky's closing lineup. And a lot of it is because of some things that Cal has said. Like, he is a really smart inbounds trigger man, throwing the ball inbounds, taking care of the basketball. He gives you another guy that can play the point on the floor. I expect Reed Sheppard to be in those closing lineups when Kentucky's trying to close teams away in November, December, and especially in SEC play. But, Jack, his ability to hit shots, I know he didn't hit any the first game, but his best level of play was games 2 and 3. And he was consistently good in those moments. And I was watching to see, would he add pressure to himself being Jeff's son, being finally in that stage of playing at Kentucky, wearing the number 15. No, that's a guy that looked relaxed. He was having fun and always makes the right play. I said this the other day. 11 out of 10 times Reed Sheppard makes the right play, because on one play he's making it right twice. Like, he's always making the right play. That's why he's going to play. And I think Cal knew that Reed was good. So if anybody was actually surprised, I might even think that maybe Cal and the staff was surprised about how good he actually was, or how good he actually is. But those of us that have seen him, I don't think that there's any surprise at the pace that he had. He dictates the pace, and that's the most impressive thing about him.
When he signed with Kentucky, I thought he was going to be a maybe. I thought look, I'm going to be totally honest. I kind of thought he would have the, Joey Hart treatment, at least from day one. And I'd seen Reed play a ton. Like, it wasn't anything about Reed. I just didn't know if Cal would ever play a dude like Reed as early as he did. Like, I felt, Derek Willis, kind of the same thing. That was a dude that didn't get really cooking until year 3, year 4, year 4 being when he really took off. Like, Cal, it's just been a thing. Like, and it's nothing against him, because Cal usually plays really damn good talent. It's like, it's nothing against either side. It's just, I was just expecting a shorter leash initially that would lead to fewer minutes from day one, maybe 5 minutes a game, kind of like a, in-state, Dante Allen, Dominique Hawkins, Derek Willis, where, maybe situationally he'd get in, but really not as a primary role player or rotation piece in the slightest. And then you hear some of those rumblings about, hey, he's knocking down shots and he's making the right reads, and, basketball IQ's on full display. He might be a kid that plays. And then you kind of adjust that and think, okay, he's going to play 10 minutes, maybe 15 a game, but comfortably in that, probably 12-minute a game window. And then you see him and you understand how far along he's coming. Like, right the week before they left for Toronto is when the buzz really started coming out. Like, dude, this kid's good. Like, he's not just in-state Kentucky good. He's not just, Jeff Sheppard's son good. Like, this is a damn good basketball player that is going to play. And now, like, I'd be shocked if he doesn't play 20 minutes a game this year. Like, I'm genuinely honest that I think Reed Sheppard will be a 20-minute per game guy is going to be that stable kind of role presence where he's going to kind of fit in. If Kentucky needs to make shots, he's going to come in and play the two. If Kentucky needs kind of a stable role presence at the lead guard position, I think he's going to provide that for the Cats. I think Reed Sheppard's going to play, and he's going to play a lot, and he's going to play really well.
Being able to play the lead guard position is probably the thing that helps him get more minutes, is being able to put him in that spot and say, okay, Reed, we're trusting you here for this 4-minute stretch to kind of weather the storm for us and get us set and take care of the basketball. And him being able to do that and he plays at a different pace than DJ does. He plays at a different pace than Rob does. I think that's another thing that kind of makes Kentucky so dynamic and hard to guard is they have guards that play at different paces. It's not just all go, 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 go. Like Reed can get up and go too, but Reed picks his spots of where he goes and when he doesn't go. And his IQ, his ability to pass the ball, to make the hockey pass that you talked about earlier, the guy that can get the offense going, but can also get his own too and knock down shots. Like that's a guy that has some versatility to his game that Kentucky's going to find itself using a lot more often than maybe what we thought they were going to. Like this is a really good backcourt that's going to have its moments. Like we know some of these freshmen are going to have games where they struggle, but it's the depth of talent at that position that's going to make Kentucky go. Not every night is DJ Wagner going to play well, but late in games, you're still going to see DJ Wagner on the floor because he can be Kentucky's closer. He's got a dog in him that some guys don't have at that spot that just goes and makes plays. And he did some things that you just can't coach. And I thought Reed Sheppard made some plays that you just can't coach too, that just a high IQ basketball players do. When you add high IQ to talent, you have a recipe for a lot of success. And I think Kentucky's got some high IQ basketball players. I think they have some guys that can make shots and make plays. And I'm excited to see where they go. And let's see what this team does. Like, I think that there's stuff to be concerned about, but it's July. And those things can be fixed and corrected over the course of the next 7 to 8 months. But the positives, there's so many of them to take away, both individually and collectively as a group.
I had 3 questions about this team. I wrote a 2,100 word feature on KSR about my three questions that I got answers to going to Toronto that we have the answers to, but I had 3 other questions that I still had leaving Toronto. One was, what does Kentucky have in the front court? I think that's an obvious one that we've addressed. Number 2, we kind of talked about style of play and assist ratio and things like that, but really more importantly, 3-point shooting numbers. 117 3-pointers across 4 games, 39% of the team's total shots, 37.6% overall. Shawn Cowell went out of his way to say this team could be a team that shoots 27 a game. They proceeded to top that number twice beyond that up in Toronto. 29.3 3-pointers taken per game in the Globl Jam. In Cal's 14 seasons in Lexington, 19.9 attempts per contest is the highest ever, and that was the 2016-17 team with Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, and Bam Adebayo. Do you envision a path for Kentucky to sustain that level of volume? I have a hard time believing they hit 27 a game, but do you see them comfortably passing that 19.9 mark that the De'Aaron Fox squad set in 2016-17?
I see this being a team, depending on lineups, but I think that they're going to get to somewhere in that 20 to 23 3-point attempts taken. And it's all because of the personnel, the style of play that they're going to play offensively, that dribble drive motion and some other things. And if they do commit to going 5 out and playing in space and a lot of guards getting downhill and attacking, then I think you're going to see Kentucky average somewhere between 20 and 23 3-point attempts a game. And we know shot clock and stuff, there were the quality of shots that were taken in Canada, a faster style of play. How much does SEC officiating kind of mess that up in the flow of the game? Like,
sure.
not just SEC officiating, but college basketball officiating. You're going to have some games where you're going to see free throws after free throw after free throw. And it's the frustrating thing about it. And that's why I want to see the game go to 4 quarters and then start resetting fouls at the end of each quarter. That way, if you have a 4 or 5 minute spurt to open a game where you get a couple of offensive fouls or things like that kind of stockpile those fouls and then get you in the bonus with 12 minutes to go in the first half, you're not living at the free throw line on every whistle the rest of the way. So I do expect those numbers to dip, But I don't think they're going to dip to a point to where they're taking games where we're seeing, like there were games last year and in the past where we saw Kentucky shoot 13, 14 threes. And that's not really a number that's stretching you out and expanding the floor and spacing it. Kentucky's going to consistently take, I think, somewhere in that 20 to 23 number. They will have some games where I think they take more, but I think they're going to settle in on an average somewhere through there. And I think that fits their style of play. And when you got a guy like Antonio Reeves, he probably needs to take 7, 8 threes a game, maybe even more if he's hitting.
And you went out of your way throughout the trip to highlight the shot chart and just how different, I mean, a night and day difference between anything Cal has really done during his time here. And we had heard, both of us together had heard that there was a very clear point of emphasis in practice to cut out the long twos. This is not just a fluke thing that we saw in Toronto. That shot chart is reflective of what they had been doing in practice. Like they are trying to cut out the 17 and 18 footers. They really want to maximize scoring potential. And I think there's a big, I don't think it's a coincidence that they go for 91.8 points per game, average margin of victory of 12.8. Like that was not a coincidence. The shot chart that you saw across all 4 games, I think I counted 25 jump shots outside the painted area over 298 total field goal attempts. 25. I mean,
it's different.
That's different. Is that sustainable with what Kentucky's trying to do this year with the personnel John Calipari has with this roster?
It is sustainable, and the biggest factor you're seeing in why Kentucky has those shot charts is it's not just a difference in style of play and how Kentucky's playing, but it's the personnel that they have on the floor. Like last season's team, and I know we screamed about long twos, and that was the part of last year that I think that they still could have taken out. They could have played the way that they played, but you didn't need to be taking 16-footers or 17-footers and a toe on the line or just a step inside. Those were the frustrating shots. But I thought that the way that this roster is constructed now, you can do things that you weren't able to do the last 2 or 3 years at Kentucky. We didn't see any floppy action at all in Toronto. Do we see that at any point when we get into the season, if they're trying to get a guy look? Maybe, but I don't think it's going to be the bulk of what Kentucky does offensively like it had been in the past. Like you can go back, and I've watched some games in the last week or so from 21-22, and I've gone back to 18-19, and just how early Kentucky was getting into its floppy action. That was the main thing that Kentucky ran offensively. It was trying to get whoever was the guard on Kentucky's roster that was a star or two that was trying to get them looks. And that is the reason why some of these guys has success in the NBA, but it's not leading to a ton of offensive numbers that really stand out to you at the collegiate game. What Kentucky has now, it has guards that can get by their man, get in the paint, and make plays for others. That was something that was missing. How many guys on last year's roster, Jack, could you say confidently could beat their man off the bounce anytime they wanted without having to use a ball screen? Because that's another thing too. You didn't see a ton of ball screens. You saw it initiate the offense, but you didn't see just ball screen, ball screen, ball screen. You saw guys just being able to beat their man. And once the first guy got beat, it was second guy getting beat, third guy getting beat, fourth guy gets a shot. Those were the possessions that stood out. Like there weren't many, maybe 3 guys on last year's roster that could do it.
And even still, though, those came with a caveat because Xavier could, but what was waiting for him at the next level?
Yeah,
it was
that's a good point.
There was always a caveat with Oscar kind of just being a big disruptor. Like it was did so many amazing things for this program, but also was a disruptor in so many different ways of that creation. So it created such a
and he didn't give you anything. He didn't give you anything above the rim either. Like when those guards did get in there, it was Jacob Toppin that was finishing the lobs at the rim. I know Chris Livingston had a couple too, but when you're talking about Ugo and Bradshaw, when you get both those guys back, you do have guys that can finish above the backside of that defense and finish some lobs. I do think that was the one thing that was missing. I know Aduthiero, had some dunks and things and stuff, but when you have that dunker spot 5 there, if Kentucky's not going to go 5 out, and you saw them really lift Trey Mitchell a ton. offensively and play kind of in the middle third of the floor. And that's where I think he's probably going to be the most dynamic.
He
and
was
if he
terrific in that area.
He was in that spot. And if you slide him to the 4, I texted you and Steven right before the first game, and I was like, over under 3-point corner threes. Well, if he plays the 4, you're going to see more corner threes from Trey. But you're also going to see him be effective in that middle third. But the 2 bigs that aren't playing right now, they're going to add some dunks and stuff on the backside of that, because these guards are going to get downhill, and Big's going to have to lift up and help. And that's an area of Kentucky's offense that wasn't there on the strip that I think that people should be excited for, because those 2 guys will add that.
Big quote that Cal, again, nothing Cal says is ever an accident. Nothing is ever a coincidence. It's very impactful. It's very intentional, everything that he says. What I'm excited about, as you can tell, is we've got good basketball players. They're skilled, and we're playing basketball. I'm not having to invent shots every time down the court, going back to your floppy action. It's hard to coach that way. I'm telling them, do more so I can do less. Those are my best teams. Do more, talk more, call what you want to run. I don't care. Just do it together. How much did you see, Shawn, of big picture system growth of like we talked about the zoom actions and those things, big picture ideas rather than drawing up individual plays for individual players. I love that about what Cal said is I don't have to draw up a shot for every single player down the floor and grind things out in that way. I can just have big picture ideas of call whatever you want. We can throw new sets in. We can get creative and throw new actions in and wrinkles and things like that. I just don't want to draw up individual shots for you. And because of how unselfish this team is, they're able to play that creative style that I think Kentucky fans have been missing.
They didn't run a ton of quick hitters and things. It was mostly playing within and what system that they have put in, and it was a random system. And that's a word that we heard a ton on that trip, before the trip, and everything, that are going to play random basketball, which makes you hard to scout. When you're not running set after set after set after set and going at Justin Edwards, or you're running this for Antonio Reeves, or you're running this for DJ Wagner, it makes you hard to scout, because now you're just playing basketball and you're making reads. Like there was a play early in the trip where I can't remember, I think it was DJ. He couldn't get by his man, but then Trey Mitchell flashes to the high post area. He feeds him and he makes a back cut.
Yep.
That is just playing in space and reacting.
That is chemistry together, by the way. Filthy. You'd have no idea they've been together for 2 weeks.
And using him in that spot. And here's another thing that I think you're going to see Kentucky do with him. And I think I may have said this on an episode last weekend, but just in case I didn't, I want to say it again. When teams go zone against Kentucky, and you're going to see that at times, I think having him as a guy that can flash in and kind of stand around that high post area, and not just be a guy that can knock down that 14, 15-foot jump shot, but a guy that can pass it out of that spot too, that adds a lot to your game offensively. He can pass the basketball. He can shoot the basketball. We got to see some of his tape and stuff over the course of his career, from UMass to Texas to West Virginia. I didn't realize that he was as polished as a passer as what we saw last week. And maybe it's because he hadn't had the opportunities in those spots to do those things. But that's another guy that he fits the system of what Kentucky has on its roster. So you didn't see a ton of quick hitters. You didn't see a ton of sets. Now, when Kentucky gets in the season here, I still hope that they play up-tempo and just push it, attack, and just get into their dribble drive motion. But out of timeouts, maybe sideline situations where they are walking the basketball, I think you'll see Kentucky go and run some stuff. And I don't think it's going to be just a quick hitter. I think it's going to be a quick hitter to start their offense.
Yep.
If you can get Antonio Reeves a shot off of a stagger screen, boom, right into it, take it. If it's not there, you flow right into dribble drive. I think that's going to be what Kentucky builds its offense with, is just quick hitters to get a look. If you don't get it, boom, you're attacking and right into a flow, and not just 25 to 20 seconds of floppy action just running off baseline screens. There's going to be a pace and a flow to this offense that's not been there in recent years.
And I think, again, the intentionality of Cal saying we need to get away from the dribbling the air out of the ball 12 seconds before getting into what we're trying to do. Like maybe run a quick hitter, and if it doesn't work, go straight to your dribble drive. Like that's the beauty of this team. That's what I'm most excited for. Like I just think they got the dudes that Jerome Tang was making fun of leaving the NCAA tournament this past year in Greensboro. Like they were missing those dudes, and they now have the dudes to be able to run what I think Cal has really wanted to run all along. And like I know we kind of called him stubborn and the archaic offense stuff and all that. Like at some point, it comes down to personnel as well. And yeah, Cal did recruit those guys to his program, so part of it does fall back on him. But he has not had a group like this in years. I think it's been since the 2016-17 group that he's had this many live action ball handlers, guys that are capable of getting to their spots, getting paint touches, getting kickouts or opportunities around the basket. Like again, I'm interested to see how when Aaron Bradshaw comes back and Ugo comes back, how that changes things. But big picture, like Cal has the dudes, and I think that's why he's so excited, and that's personally why I'm so excited. It's a really, really fun thing.
And one more note too with offense, when you mentioned the zoom and you mentioned the get action stuff that Kentucky did, and the get action part is probably some of my favorite just because it's so simple to run and things. And when you got a guy like Trey Mitchell who occupies so much attention, and DJ Wagner coming off of that, getting downhill and kind of forcing help, and you've got guys like Antonio Reeves, spotted up and lifting that occupies the help defender and the guy that does some things. Like it just spaces the floor so much better. And that's where you saw some of Trey Mitchell's open threes was off things like that. Guards getting downhill, forcing help, and then firing that thing back out there and playing in space. But Cal said a lot of good stuff. And how about Cal talking over the trip and changing his mind? Where at first I don't really like Justin before, but then he comes back and ended the trip talking about, like you said, this isn't, a wrestling match and things. And that is something that Kentucky did. I tweeted that earlier in the week. At one point, Cal recruited the best athletes. He threw shooting out the window and kind of skill set. He went and got the biggest, strongest, most athletic guys, the guys that could fly above the rim and make plays there. And then he made it work. And for a long time, Jack, it did work. And to his credit, it worked well. And then somebody asked me, well, why did he take so long to change? Well, when you're really successful like that man is, and he's in the Hall of Fame, you probably don't think you really need to change very much. Because for the most part of his career, he's done it at a very high level and he's done it well. But now you don't want to get left behind. And some of those comments that he made now signals more to basketball players. That's not the athletes. You get some that are athletic, but he's got basketball players now. Like Reed Sheppard's not the best athlete. He's not going to, he can jump, he can dunk, he can jump, but we're not talking like Hamidou Diallo athleticism and things like that. But we're talking guys that make shots, high IQ basketball players across the board. All these guys, IQ. Trey Mitchell, high IQ. You're seeing it with DJ, like Antonio Reeves. Like it's just beautiful basketball to watch. And I think that this team is going to grade out as one of the more efficient teams in KenPom on the offensive end. And it's going to be fun to watch, especially when they add the full roster together. I want to see what it looks like then.
Did you like, and Steven, if you can pull this up, it was on my Twitter page, the Cal talking the lineup where he said, like, yeah, if you go DJ and Antonio and Rob or Reed and Justin, and then he was like, and then you just go. It was one of my favorite moments of the whole trip because it was like, yes, he sees the vision. The vision, it's finally here. Like we've been talking about this for so long. The growth, like you said, of literally to start the event, after the Team Germany win, he was like, yeah, man, I tried Justin at the 4. Stuff just wasn't working, man. It is what it is.
4, literally, like, shoot. I mean, it's not, we're not wrestling. It's not a decathlon. It's not a track meet. It's not a wrestling. It's not, this is basketball. And if he could gain 10 pounds before the time we start, to have DJ, Robert, Antonio, Justin, or Reed in there, and have 4 literally like shoot. I mean, it's again,
Okay,
it's not. We're not.
Thank you, Cal. This is what we've been waiting for. God, I love this, man. That was a good trip, man. I really enjoyed that. I don't want to drag on. We have a lot of content that we need to stretch out. Obviously, we are now approaching the slow period. Hopefully, we get some recruiting news and buzz and things like that. I was told that they were focused on obviously Toronto getting wins there, figuring out the team health, what's going on with Ugo, what's going on with Aaron Bradshaw, figuring out big picture. The start of the preseason, that was priority number 1 for this program, and then they were going to kind of weigh their options at the end of July about, okay, what do we need to do recruiting wise? Who are we going to go all in on? Who are we going to kind of back off on? Going to have to hit 2025 hard for reclasses. Who should we go all in on? Things like that. So I think we're now going to start getting some updates on, recruiting updates on hosting official visitors and who Kentucky's really going to go all in on. Are they going to make pushes for any individual recruits, get that 2024 class rolling? I know Santo's kind of penciled in, depending on what happens with him, if he reclasses or not. He's penciled in as commit number 1, but what does Cal do from here? I really think in the next week or two, we're going to start getting some new names and at least getting what cream is going to rise to the top with that group and who Cal really likes now that the dust has settled on Toronto. So we're going to hit a slowdown period inevitably, but there's still going to be plenty to talk about, and we'll be able to talk about other big picture things about what this team's looking like, what we need to see from this team moving forward. But Shawn, it was good. It was good trip, good four game stretch, and it's never a bad thing to come home with a gold medal.
No, it's never. And I thought that was cool to see them celebrating and things with the gold medal. And you're right. We're entering a stretch here where things are going to slow down a little bit. We just had this trip in July, probably one of the busiest Julys we've had on this show since this has been a show. But this is where we kind of lean on our listeners and our fans. And I'm sure we'll do some questions and stuff moving forward in some episodes. We'll answer more questions and things, and we'll see what happens with the transfer portal in August and where Kentucky goes. But hey, at least it bridged the gap from March till October, and we got to see high quality basketball and at least give us an idea of what Kentucky's going to do. And pretty soon we'll start getting something of what this schedule is going to look like in the non-conference and some layout of what the Southeastern Conference schedule is going to look like. So there's going to be content around the corner, so it won't be long.
Get those likes in, get those subscribes in. Appreciate everybody that tunes in on our show. Get us to 22,000 subscribers. We appreciate each and every one of you. Appreciate Birddogs. Appreciate Andy Ludicky. And appreciate our title sponsor, as always, Justice and Old. They are the absolute best. Shawn Smith, let's get the heck out of here. Where can fans find your work?
You can find my work at gobigbluecountry.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at GBBCountry.
Find me on Twitter as well at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email, jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. That will be back next time for the Jam Packed Sources A podcast. We will see you then.